Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's still Tuesday, the 4th of December 2025, but time has marched on since this morning, and it is now, what is the time? 2:41 p.m. So I'm sitting out in the garden. I've had a bit of lunch and I've just finished polishing up the lovely Hair in the Moon pendant I made yesterday. So I've been a busy mama too. I'm so exhausted. I really am. But every day I try and make something, whether it's spinning yarn, reading your story, making jewellery. If you saw the video earlier talking about making these, I'm very happy how they've turned out. I might have to just twist this a little bit so that it faces more forwards, but apart from that, turned out rather nice. I'm still a bit disappointed that I couldn't keep them the way they were with the baby inside, but they kept breaking apart and I lost the bottom of this one for quite some months. Gives me hope that I might find my sterling silver asparagus ring if it's still in the house somewhere, because I lost that months ago too. It's funny how things sort of suddenly pop up after months of being missing. But anyway, I'm happy I got this one back, because I did try to make it, to look at making it with a leftover Matryoshka doll, but they were they're not exactly the same size as it is, but one was much smaller, so I thought that's not going to work. And I even considered buying blank Matryoshka dolls. You can buy blank ones, a whole set to paint up yourself on eBay, and I thought it's too much work, can't be bothered. And as it was, these were a lot of work getting these done, but yeah, I'm loving the quirky little hairdos, and I'm glad I used the opal just for a little bit more interest, really. Opulence is a thing at Titania's Realm. We tend to get very opulent and extravagant and extraneous indeed. Well, if I had more money, by the gods, would we be opulent? But anyway, I don't, so I just make do with what I have and make quirky little art pieces out of them, and I think it's quite sweet actually. Right, so we'll carry on. After all that polishing, my fingers are sore. I've got bits of super glue stuck to my skin, which is not actually good for me. People are there absorbing all that toxicity. Let me just try and scrape some of it off. Yeah, it's amazing how much glue I managed to get on myself. So I'm peeling off glue, and I'm nearly ready to read you the story by the goddess. Right, let us begin. Chapter 10. The Lobster Quadrille. The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and drew the back of one flapper across his eyes. He looked at Alice and tried to speak, but for a minute or two sobs choked his voice. My glasses are rather dirty. I'll try and remedy that. Sort of see you now. Same as if he had a bone in his throat, said the Griffin, and it set to work shaking him and punching him in the back. At last the Mock Turtle recovered his voice, and with tears running down his cheeks, he went on again. You may not have lived much under the sea. I haven't, said Alice. And perhaps you were never even introduced to a lobster. Alice began to say, I once tasted, but checked herself hastily and said, No, never. So you can have no idea what a delightful thing a lobster quadrille is. No, indeed, said Alice. What sort of a dance is it? Why, said the Gryphon, you first form into a line along the seashore. 2 lines, cried the Mock Turtle. Seals, turtles, salmon, and so on. Then, when you've cleared all the jellyfish out of the way, that generally takes some time, interrupted the Gryphon, you advance twice. Each with a lobster as a partner, cried the Gryphon. Of course, the Mock Turtle said. Advance twice, set 2 partners. Change lobsters and retire in same order, continued the Gryphon. Then, you know, the Mock Turtle went on, you throw the lobsters, shouted the Gryphon, with a bound into the air, as far out to the sea as you can. Swim after them, screamed the Gryphon. Turn a somersault in the sea, cried the Mock Turtle, capering wildly about. Change lobsters again, yelled the Gryphon at the top of his voice. Back to land again, and that's all the first figure, said the Mock Turtle, suddenly dropping his voice, and the 2 creatures, who had been jumping about like mad things all this time, sat down again very sadly and quietly and looked at Alice. It must be a very pretty dance, said Alice timidly. Would you like to see a little of it? Said the Mock Turtle. Very much indeed, said Alice. Come, let's try the first figure, said the Mock Turtle to the Gryphon. We can do without lobsters, you know. Which shall sing? Oh, you sing, said the Gryphon. I've forgotten the words. So they began solemnly dancing round and round Alice, every now and then treading on her toes when they passed too close, and waving their forepaws to mark the time, while the Mock Turtle sang this very slowly and sadly. Will you walk a little faster? Said a whiting to a snail. There's a porpoise close behind us, and he's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. They're waiting on the shingle. Will you come and join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? I'm really loving these. They're a lot of work. It took me 5 hours to make, but I'm loving them. All right. Where were we? That was the first verse. You can really have no notion how delightful it will be when they take us up and throw us with the lobsters out to sea. But the snail replied, too far, and gave a look askance. Said he thanked the whiting kindly, but he would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not join the dance. What matters it how far we go? his scaly friend replied. There is another shore, you know, upon the other side, the farther off from England, and nearer it is to France. Then turn not pale, beloved snail, but come and join the dance. Will you, won't you? Will you, won't you? Will you join the dance? Will you, won't you? Will you, won't you? Won't you join the dance? Thank you. It's a very interesting dance to watch, said Alice, feeling very glad that it was over at last. I do so like that curious song about the whiting. Oh, as to the whiting, said the Mock Turtle, you've seen them, of course. Yes, said Alice. I've often seen them at She checked herself hastily. I don't know where Din may be, said the Mock Turtle, but if you've seen them so often, of course you know what they're like. I believe so, Alice replied thoughtfully. They have their tails in their mouths, and they're all over crumbs. You're wrong about the crumbs, said the Mock Turtle. Crumbs would all wash off in the sea. But they have their tails in their mouths, and the reason is, here the Mock Turtle yawned and shut his eyes. Tell her about the reason and all that, he said to the Griffin. The reason is, said the Griffin, that they would go with the lobsters to the dance. So they got thrown out to sea. So they had to fall a long way. So they got their tails fast in their mouths. So they couldn't get them out again. That's all. He's a bit wiggly wobbly, wiggly wobbly, bibbly bobbly, bibbity bobbity boop. Dear Goddess, the things I do, but I was determined to give them a second life, and I've been imagining this for quite some time because I thought it's the only way I can keep the babies without losing the bums of the mothers, because there's nothing worse than your ass falling off and losing all your class and having no ass. So I fixed it and remade it. Mr. Crow just had a swim. He's a very happy bird when he has a swim. He flutters all his feathers and shakes himself off. Good boy, Mr. Crow. He's cleaner than Bo and Kermie, who've both got a bath each but never used theirs. Did you see how the crow has a bath? That's what you're supposed to do too. Yes, you, Bo. You dirty bird, you. Dirty, dirty birdie. He's tiptoeing away from me. Oh, they're happy little birds. Bit smelly though. They really do need to bathe. What can you do? If the crow can't teach them how to bath, then how am I going to? I could just plonk them in the water against their will, but that would be a bit violating and weird. I guess they'll work it out in due course, one day. Kermie sort of gives himself a bath in his water bowl. He sort of tries to hunker into it, which is mad since he's got a much larger bowl to bath in, but oh well. Birdie logic, as long as they're happy and contented, that's all that matters. Right, now. Thank you, said Alice. It's very interesting. I never knew so much about a whiting before. I can tell you more than that if you like, said the Griffin. Do you know why it's called a whiting? I never thought about it, said Alice. Why? It does the boots and shoes, the Griffin replied very solemnly. Alice was thoroughly puzzled. Does the boots and shoes? She repeated in a wondering tone. Why, what are your shoes done with? Said the Griffin. I mean, what makes them so shiny? Alice looked down at them and considered a little before she gave her answer. They're done with blacking, I believe. Boots and shoes under the sea, the Griffin went on in a deep voice, are done with whiting. Now you know. And what are they made of? Alice asked in a tone of great curiosity. Soles and eels, of course, the Griffin replied rather impatiently. Any shrimp could have told you that. If I'd been the whiting, said Alice, whose thoughts were still running on the song, I'd have said to the porpoise, keep back, please. We don't want you with us. They were obliged to have him with them, the Mock Turtle said. No wise fish would go anywhere without a porpoise. Wouldn't it really? Said Alice in a tone of great surprise. Of course not, said the Mock Turtle. Why, if a fish came to me and told me he was going on a journey, I should say, with what purpose? Don't you mean purpose? Said Alice. I mean what I say, the Mock Turtle replied in an offended tone. And the Griffin added, come, let's hear some of your adventures. I could tell you my adventures beginning from this morning, said Alice a little timidly, but it's no use going back to yesterday, because I was a different person then. Explain all that, said the Mock Turtle. No, the adventures first, said the Griffin in an impatient tone. Explanations take such a dreadful time. So Alice began telling them her adventures from the time when she first saw the White Rabbit. She was a little nervous about it just at first. The two creatures got so close to her, one on each side, and opened their eyes and mouths so very wide. But she gained courage as she went on. Her listeners were perfectly quiet till she got to the part about her repeating, "You are old, Father William," to the caterpillar, and the words all coming different, and then the Mock Turtle drew a long breath. And said, "That's a very curious." It's all about as curious as it can be, said the Griffin. It all came different, the Mock Turtle repeated thoughtfully. I should like to hear her try and repeat something now. Tell her to begin. He looked at the Griffin as if he thought it had some kind of authority over Alice. Stand up and repeat, "'Tis the voice of the sluggard," said the Griffin. How the creatures order one about and make one repeat lessons, thought Alice. I might just as well be at school at once. However, she got up and began to repeat it. But her head was so full of the lobster quadrille that she hardly knew what she was saying, and the words came very queer indeed. "'Tis the voice of the lobster, I heard him declare, "You have baked me too brown, I must sugar my hair." As a duck with its eyelids, so he with his nose trims his belt and his buttons and turns out his toes. When the sands are all dry and he is gay as a lark, and will talk in contemptuous tones of the shark. But when the tide rises and sharks are around, his voice has a timid and tremulous sound. "That's different from what I used to say when I was a child," said the Gryphon. "Well, I never heard it before," said the Mock Turtle, "but it sounds uncommon nonsense." Alice said nothing. She had sat down again with her face in her hands, wondering if anything would ever happen in a natural way again. Indian Myna Bird's got a lot to say, wherever he is. You going to answer him, little boy? "I should like to have it explained," said the Mock Turtle. "She can't explain it," said the Gryphon hastily. "Go on with the next verse." "But about his toes," the Mock Turtle persisted. "How could he turn them out with his nose, you know?" "It's the first position in dancing," Alice said, but was dreadfully puzzled by the whole thing and longed to change the subject. "Go on with the next verse," the Gryphon repeated impatiently. "It begins with the words, 'I passed by his garden.'" Alice did not dare to disobey, though she felt sure it would all come wrong, and she went on in a trembling voice. "I passed by his garden and marked with one eye how the owl and the panther were sharing a pie. The panther took pie crust and gravy and meat, while the owl had a dish as its share of the treat. When the pie was all finished, the owl, as a boon, was kindly permitted to pocket the spoon, while the panther received knife and fork with a growl, and concluded the banquet. "What is the use of repeating all that stuff?" the Mock Turtle interrupted. "If you don't explain it as you go on, it's by far the most confusing thing I ever heard." "Yes, I think you'd better leave off," said the Gryphon, and Alice was only too glad to do so. "Shall we try another figure of the lobster quadrille?" the Gryphon went on. "Or would you like the Mock Turtle to sing you a song?" "Oh, a song, please, if the Mock Turtle would be so kind," Alice replied, so eagerly that the Gryphon said in a rather offended tone, "No accounting for tastes. Sing her turtle soup, will you, old fellow?" The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and began, in a voice sometimes choked with sobs, to sing this: "A beautiful soup, so rich and green, waiting in a hot tureen. Who for such dainties would not stoop? Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup. Beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, evening. A beautiful, beautiful soup. A beautiful soup. Who cares for fish, game, or any other dish? Who would not give all else for 2 pennyworth only of beautiful soup? Pennyworth only of a beautiful soup. A beautiful soup. A beautiful soup. Soup of the evening. A beautiful, beautiful soup. Anyway, don't mind me. I'm being silly as a wheel because I can, because I'm extremely tired, and I get silly when I'm extremely tired. Who knew hypomania is a thing with complex PTSD survivors? Yes, it is. So, chorus again, cried the Griffin, and the Mock Turtle had just begun to repeat it when a cry of "the trial's beginning" was heard in the distance. "Come on!" cried the Griffin, and taking Alice by the hand, it hurried off without waiting for the end of the song. "What trial is it?" Alice panted as she ran, but the Griffin only answered, "Come on!" and ran the faster while more and more faintly came, carried on the breeze that followed them, the melancholy words, "Soup of the evening, a beautiful soup." Chapter 11. Who stole the tarts? I swear to God, Lewis Carroll was stoned through the whole time he wrote the story, wasn't he? Some very weird little witticisms and analogies, and you've got the drug reference of the caterpillar smoking the hookah. It's a bit odd, but then good drugs of the psychedelic kind, taken in the right dosages and not turned into an addictive, debilitating process, do expand your consciousness, people, help you transform from a caterpillar into a butterfly. In fact, as a matter of fact, I'm seeing a bit of transformative energies in my own self. Only I haven't had a good smoke of the you-know-what for a very long time. Quite some years now, must be 3 since I last had a bit of a spliff. But I was never a regular smoker. It's a rare occurrence, but I take it consciously for my healing, people of Earth. I thank and bless the herb for its healing qualities, and it's amazing what it's done for me, actually. It's opened up my creativity and safeguarded me against the COVIDian madness. No, what safeguarded me against that was my discernment and my intelligence and my wisdom and my lived experience, and being a trauma survivor, see through the bullshit straight away. You know, when someone's being draconian, controlling, you can sniff it on the air. Has a peculiar stench to it too. Control freaks. Yuck. Right, let us continue. I want to run in and get something to nibble on and some more water. I might do that quickly. Revive myself. A beautiful soup song wore me out, you understand? Good little birdie bumps. Right, I'm so exhausted, but yet I can't seem to stop. I'm waiting on my new sewing machine to arrive. They said 3 to 5 days, so it's only been 2 days. Hopefully I can get that one to work, because if not, I will have wasted money, and I hate wasting money. It annoys me, especially since it's such a sparse resource. But I kind of have to laugh. The inspectors that came, the 2 young women, in my front room is my spinning wheel with all my wool laid out, creative chaos. And then you get to my kitchen, and it was the sewing machine that broke down with all my sewing all hanging around, all in creative chaos. And then you go to my studio, and they could see all my silversmithing, and they just kind of looked at me. It does look at the moment like my energies are very scattered, but they're not. I've got it all under control. But I just go from one project to the other and kind of cycle back to things. So at night I tend to do the spinning of the wool in front of the TV. I watch TV, and I need to buy a new television because that one keeps blipping off all the time. It's bloody annoying, but my daughter gave it to me just before she left the UK in 2015. So it's I've had it for 10 years now, and I don't know how old it was when she gave it to me, but it wasn't new when she gave it to me. So I think I've had, my value out of that. But constantly needing to update things or replace things. I guess that's life, isn't it, people of Earth? I need to buy a new mattress too. Definitely due for a new mattress, but oh well. Right, here we are, back for chapter 11. Who stole the tarts? The King and Queen of Hearts were seated on their throne when they arrived, with a great crowd assembled about them, all sorts of little birds and beasts, as well as the whole pack of cards. The knave was standing before them in chains, with a soldier on each side to guard him, and near the king was the white rabbit, with a trumpet in one hand and a scroll of parchment in the other. In the very middle of the court was a table with a large dish of tarts upon it. They looked so good that it made Alice quite hungry to look at them. I wish they'd get the trial done, she thought, and hand round the refreshments. But there seemed to be no chance of this, so she began looking at everything about her to pass away the time. I need to lie down soon, or I might just bloody pass away. I woke up at 7 by the gods. Oh well, just as well I did, or I wouldn't have been awake and ready when the inspectors came. It's a bit like that. Anyway, Alice had never been in a court of justice before, but she had read about them in books, and she was quite pleased to find that she knew the name of nearly everything there. "That's the judge," she said to herself, "because of his great wig." The judge, by the way, was the king, and as he wore his crown over the wig, he did not look at all comfortable, and it was certainly not becoming. "And that's the jury box," thought Alice, "and those 12 creatures," she was obliged to say creatures, you see, because some of them were animals and some were birds. "I suppose they are the jurors." Kermie would make an excellent juror because he's quite chilled out, quite reasonable most of the time. Bo, however, it would depend on his mood. She said this last word 2 or 3 times over to herself, being rather proud of it, for she thought, and rightly too, that very few little girls of her age knew the meaning of it at all. Just want to make sure their hair hasn't fallen out. No, they're still there. Dear Goddess. The divine feminine is alive with this one. And this one. They've been fecund. They've given forth life. They're living their best lives hanging from my earlobes. It's all a bit silly, isn't it? I've been looking for the bottom of this mother for months though. As soon as I saw it, I was like, right, wacky do, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to solve the problem of the loose caboose and remake these earrings. If only you could just super glue down everyone's assets, life would be so much simpler, wouldn't it? But never mind. Guess you had to be there. However, jurymen would have done just as well. The 12 jurors were all writing very busily on slates. "What are they doing?" Alice whispered to the Griffin. "They can't have anything to put down yet, before the trial's begun." "They're putting down their names," the Griffin whispered in reply, "for fear they should forget them before the end of the trial." "Stupid things," Alice began in a loud, indignant voice. But she stopped herself hastily, for the White Rabbit cried out, "Silence in the court!" And the king put on his spectacles and looked anxiously round to make out who was talking. Alice could see, as well as if she were looking over their shoulders, that all the jurors were writing down stupid things on their slates, and she could even make out that one of them didn't know how to spell stupid, and that he had to ask his neighbour to tell him. A nice muddle their slates will be in before the trial's over, thought Alice. Kermie's eating apple that he carried up to put on the flat part of his swing. Very cute. You're very cute, Kermie. Yes, you are. You're a sweet little baby. One of the jurors had a pencil that squeaked. This, of course, Alice could not stand. I hate that too. Used to hate it when people ran their fingernails down the chalkboard. Oh. And she went round the court and got behind him, and very soon found an opportunity of taking it away. She did it so quickly that the poor little juror, it was Bill the lizard, could not make out at all what had become of it. So after hunting all about for it, he was obliged to write with one finger for the rest of the day, and this was of very little use, as it left no mark on the slate. "Herald, read the accusation," said the king. On this, the White Rabbit blew 3 blasts on the trumpet, and then unrolled the parchment scroll and read as follows. "The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them quite away." "Consider your verdict," the king said to the jury. "Not yet, not yet," the rabbit hastily interrupted. "There's a good deal to come before that." "Call the first witness," said the king, and the White Rabbit blew 3 blasts on the trumpet and called out, "First witness." The first witness was the Hatter. By the gods. He came in with a teacup in one hand and a piece of bread and butter in the other. "I beg pardon, Your Majesty," he began, "for bringing these in, but I hadn't quite finished my tea when I was sent for." "You ought to have finished," said the king. "When did you begin?" The Hatter looked at the March Hare, who had followed him into the court, arm in arm with the Dormouse. 14th of March, I think it was," he said. 15th, said the March Hare. 16th, added the Dormouse. "Write that down," the king said to the jury, and the jury eagerly wrote down all 3 dates on their slates, and then added them up and reduced the answer to shillings and pence. "Take off your hat," the king said to the Hatter. "It isn't mine," said the Hatter. "Stolen!" the king exclaimed, turning to the jury, who instantly made a memorandum of the fact. "I keep them to sell," the Hatter added as an explanation. "I've none of my own. I'm a Hatter." Here the Queen put on her spectacles and began staring hard at the Hatter, who turned pale and fidgeted. "Give your evidence," said the king, "and don't be nervous or I'll have you executed on the spot." This did not seem to encourage the witness at all. He kept shifting from one foot to the other, looking uneasily at the Queen, and in his confusion he bit a large piece out of his teacup instead of the bread and butter. Just at this moment, Alice felt a very curious sensation which puzzled her a good deal until she made out what it was. She was beginning to grow larger again, and she thought at first she would get up and leave the court, but on second thoughts she decided to remain where she was as long as there was room for her. "I wish you wouldn't squeeze so," said the Dormouse, who was sitting next to her. "I can hardly breathe." "I can't help it," said Alice very meekly. "I'm growing." "You've no right to grow here," said the Dormouse. "Don't talk nonsense," said Alice more boldly. "You know you're growing too." "Yes, but I grow at a reasonable pace," said the Dormouse. "Not in that ridiculous fashion." And he got up very sulkily and crossed over to the other side of the court. All this time, the Queen had never left off staring at the Hatter. And just as the Dormouse crossed the court, she said to one of the officers of the court, "Bring me the list of the singers of the last concert," on which the wretched Hatter trembled so that he shook both his shoes off. "Give your evidence," the King repeated angrily, "or I'll have you executed, whether you're nervous or not." "I'm a poor man, Your Majesty," the Hatter began in a trembling voice, "and I hadn't just begun my tea, not above a week or so, and what with the bread and butter getting so thin and the twinkling of the tea—" "The twinkling of what?" said the King. "It began with the tea," the Hatter replied. "Of course, twinkling begins with a tea," said the King sharply. "Do you take me for a dunce? Go on." "I'm a poor man," the Hatter went on, "and most things twinkled after that. Only the March Hare said—" "I didn't," the March Hare interrupted in great hurry. "You did," said the Hatter. "I deny it," said the March Hare. "He denies it," said the King. "Leave out that part." "Well, at any rate, the Dormouse said," the Hatter went on, looking anxiously round to see if he would deny it too. But the Dormouse denied nothing, being fast asleep. "After that," continued the Hatter, "I cut some more bread and butter." "But what did the Dormouse say?" one of the jury asked. "That I can't remember," said the Hatter. "You must remember," remarked the King, "or I'll have you executed." The miserable Hatter dropped his teacup and bread and butter and went down on one knee. "I'm a poor man, Your Majesty," he began. "You're a very poor speaker," said the King. Here one of the guinea pigs cheered and was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court. As that is rather a hard word, I will just explain to you how it was done. They had a large canvas bag which tied up at the mouth with strings. Into this they slipped the guinea pig, head first, and then sat upon it. It's one way to suppress a guinea pig, I suppose. But Mama T doesn't do suppression, oppression, depression, repression, regression, or any other shunning of any other kind. Where were we? Having a little bit of a moment. Freedom for the guinea pigs everywhere. I'm glad I've seen that done for Alice. I've so often read in the newspapers at the end of trials, there was some attempt at applause which was immediately suppressed by the officers of the court. and I never understood what it meant till now. Put you in a bag and sit on you, bit like being a carpetbagger, although that's a totally different meaning, isn't it? Well, politics, people there. It's a dirty business. If that's all you know about it, you may stand down, continued the king. I can't go no lower, said the Hatter. I'm on the floor as it is. Then you may sit down, the king replied. Here the other guinea pig cheered and was suppressed. Come, that finishes the guinea pigs, thought Alice. Now we shall get on better. I'd rather finish my tea, said the Hatter, with an anxious look at the Queen, who was reading the list of singers. You may go, said the King, and the Hatter hurriedly left the court without even waiting to put on his shoes. And just take his head off outside, the Queen added to one of the officers. But the Hatter was out of sight before the officer could get to the door. Call the next witness, said the King. The next witness was the Duchess's cook. She carried the pepper box in her hand, and Alice guessed who it was even before she got into the court by the way the people near the door began sneezing all at once. Give your evidence, said the King. Shan't, said the cook. The King looked anxiously at the White Rabbit, who said in a low voice, Your Majesty must cross-examine this witness. Well, if I must, I must, the King said with a melancholy air, and, after folding his arms and frowning at the cook till his eyes were nearly out of sight, he said in a deep voice, What are the tarts made of? Pepper, mostly, said the cook. Treacle, said a sleepy voice behind her. Collar that dormouse, the Queen shrieked out. Behead that dormouse. Turn that dormouse out of court. Suppress him. Pinch him. Off with his whiskers. For some minutes, the whole court was in confusion, getting the dormouse turned out, and by the time they had settled down again, the cook had disappeared. Never mind, said the King with an air of great relief. Call the next witness. And he added in an undertone to the Queen, Really, my dear, you must cross-examine the next witness. It quite makes my forehead ache. Alice watched the White Rabbit as he fumbled over the list, feeling very curious to see what the next witness would be like. For they haven't got much evidence yet, she said to herself. Imagine her surprise when the White Rabbit read out at the top of his shrill little voice the name Alice. And thus concludes today's offerings of even date, the 4th of December. Oh, you know what? We're near the end, so we'll continue on. One more chapter. It's only a few pages. Let's finish the first book, Alice in Wonderland, chapter 12, Roman numerals, and then I shall come back tomorrow with Through the Looking Glass. Right, are you ready, people of Earth? Deep breath, boobs out, shoulders back, chin up, hair flying in the breeze, spit spot and all that jazz. Chapter 12. Alice's evidence. Just want to see what my babies are doing. My babies. Right. Here, cried Alice, quite forgetting in the flurry of the moment how large she had grown in the last few minutes. And she jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, upsetting all the jurymen onto the heads of the crowd below, and there they lay sprawling about, reminding her very much of a globe of goldfish she had accidentally upset the week before. "Oh, I beg your pardon," she exclaimed in a tone of great dismay, and began picking them up again as quickly as she could, for the accident of the goldfish kept running in her head, and she had a vague sort of idea that they must be collected at once and put back into the jury box, or they would die. "The trial cannot proceed," said the king in a very grave voice, "until all the jurymen are back in their proper places. All," he repeated with great emphasis, looking hard at Alice as he said so. Alice looked at the jury box and saw that, in her haste, she had put the lizard in head downwards, and the poor little thing was waving its tail about in a melancholy way, being quite unable to move. She soon got it out again and put it right. "Not that it signifies much," she said to herself. "I should think it would be quite as much use in the trial one way up as the other." As soon as the jury had a little recovered from the shock of being upset and their slates and pencils had been found and handed back to them, they set to work very diligently to write out a history of the accident, all except the lizard, who seemed too much overcome to do anything but sit with its mouth open, gazing up into the roof of the court, which looks like this. Otherwise known as disassociation people are there. Ask me how I know. Although I don't tend to have my mouth open while I'm disassociating. Just leave my body and go flying around the space. Sometimes I have to whistle myself back. It can be a bit interesting at times. Right. What's my little birdies doing? Wondering when they're going back in the house. Okay. After the story's finished, you're going back in the house, my boys? You're such good birdie boys. "What do you know about this business?" the king said to Alice. "Nothing," said Alice. "Nothing whatever?" persisted the king. "Nothing whatever," said Alice. "That's very important," the king said, turning to the jury. They were just beginning to write this down on their slates when the White Rabbit interrupted. "Unimportant, Your Majesty means, of course," he said in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. "Unimportant, of course I meant," the king hastily said, and went on to himself in an undertone. "Important, unimportant, unimportant, important," as if he were trying which word sounded best. "Oh, hello. Hello, little Tweety bird. You've got lots to tell me with your little yellow beak." And he's gone away off to the African tulip tree. And we've got Kookaburra up on the hills hoist and BB, the bastard buzzard scrub turkey, walking round and round in circles around the bird bath she's now going to drink from. It's very interesting, isn't it? No, he decided not to drink from it. Okay. He's thinking. No, he's not going to do it. Right, I might have a drink. I drink it all. By the gods. Okay, some of the jury wrote it down. Important. And some unimportant. Alice could see this as she was near enough to look over their slates. But it doesn't matter a bit, she thought to herself. At this moment, the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, called out, "Silence!" and read out from his book, "Rule 42, all persons more than a mile high to leave the court." Everybody looked at Alice. "I'm not a mile high," said Alice. "You are," said the king. "Nearly 2 miles high," added the queen. "Well, I shan't go at any rate," said Alice. "Besides, that's not a regular rule. You invented it just now." "It's the oldest rule in the book," said the king. "Then it ought to be number 1, said Alice. The king turned pale and shut his notebook hastily. "Consider your verdict," he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. "There's more evidence to come yet, please your majesty," said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry. "This paper has just been picked up." "What's in it?" said the queen. "I haven't opened it yet," said the White Rabbit, "but it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody." "It must have been that," said the king, "unless it was written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know." "Who is it directed to?" said one of the jurymen. "It isn't directed at all," said the White Rabbit. "In fact, there's nothing written on the outside." He folded the paper as he spoke and added, "It isn't a letter after all. It's a set of verses." Oh, it's such an itchy nose. And you know what that's from, don't you? Polishing. I've probably got a bit of cotton mop up in my nose. Ugh. Anyway, cotton mop being the little thing that you put in the Dremel to polish the silver and gives off little fibres. The things I do. But at least it's a better alternative than being a veritable dormouse and sleeping your life away. And I did that for 20 years, people have heard. So I'm playing catch up. Going nowhere fast, I might add. "Are they in the prisoner's handwriting?" asked another of the jurymen. "No, they're not," said the White Rabbit. "And that's the queerest thing about it." The jury all looked puzzled. "He must have imitated somebody else's hand," said the king. The jury all brightened up again. "Please, your majesty," said the knave, "I didn't write it, and they can't prove I did. There's no name signed at the end." "If you didn't sign it," said the king, "that only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man." Indeed. There was a general clapping of hands at this. It was the first really clever thing the king had said that day. "That proves his guilt," said the queen. "It proves nothing of the sort," said Alice. "Why, you don't even know what they're about." "Read them," said the king. The White Rabbit put on his spectacles. Where shall I begin, please, Your Majesty? He asked. Begin at the beginning, the king said gravely, and go on till you come to the end, then stop. These were the verses the White Rabbit read. They told me you had been to her and mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her one, they gave him two. You gave us 3 or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest between yourself and me. That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet, said the king, rubbing his hands. So now let the jury. If any one of them can explain it, said Alice. She had grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't a bit afraid of interrupting him. I'll give him 6pence. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. The jury all wrote down on their slates, she doesn't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. But none of them attempted to explain the paper. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a world of trouble, you know, as we needn't try to find any. And yet, I don't know, he went on, spreading out the verses on his knee and looking at them with one eye. I seem to see some meaning in them, after all. Said I could not swim. You can't swim, can you? He added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. Do I look like it? He said, which he certainly did not, being made entirely of cardboard. All right, so far, said the king, and he went on muttering over the verses to him. We know it to be true, that's the jury, of course. I gave her 1, they gave him 2. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know. But it goes on. They all returned from him to you, said Alice. Why, there they are, said the king triumphantly, pointing to the tarts on the table. Nothing can be clearer than that. Then again, before she had this fit, you never had fits, my dear, I think, he said to the queen. Never, said the queen furiously, throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. The unfortunate little Bill had left off writing on his slate with one finger, as he found it made no mark. But he now hastily began again, using the ink that was trickling down his face as long as it lasted. Then the words don't fit you, said the king, looking round the court with a smile. There was a dead silence. It's a pun, the king added in an angry tone, and everybody laughed. Let the jury consider their verdict, the king said, for about the 20th time that day. No, no, said the queen. Sentence first, verdict afterwards. Stuff and nonsense, said Alice loudly. The idea of having the sentence first. Hold your tongue, said the queen, turning purple. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head, the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. Who cares for you, said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time. You're nothing but a pack of cards. At this, the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her. She gave a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees on her face. Wake up, Alice dear, said her sister. Why, what a long sleep you've had. Oh, I had such a curious dream, said Alice, and she told her sister, as well as she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. And when she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, It was a curious dream, dear, certainly, but now run into your tea. It's getting late. So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran, as well she might, what a wonderful dream it had been. But her sister sat still just as she left her, leaning her head on her hand, watching the setting sun, which in my area would be in this direction, and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures, till she too began dreaming after a fashion, and this was her dream. First she dreamed of little Alice herself. Once again the tiny hands were clasped upon her knee, and the bright, eager eyes were looking up into hers. She could hear the very tones of her voice and see that queer little toss of her head to keep back the wandering hair that would always get into her eyes. And still, as she listened, or seemed to listen, the whole place around her came alive with the strange creatures of her little sister's dream. The long grass rustled at her feet as the white rabbit hurried by. The frightened mouse splashed his way through the neighbouring pool. She could hear the rattle of the teacups as the March Hare and his friends shared their never-ending meal, and the shrill voice of the Queen ordering off her unfortunate guests to execution. Once more the pig baby was sneezing on the Duchess's knee while plates and dishes crashed around it. Once more the shriek of the griffin, the squeaking of the lizard's slate pencil, and the choking of the suppressed guinea pigs filled the air, mixed up with the distant sob of the miserable mock turtle. He needs to be returned to the sea, people of Earth, or he shall ever be miserable like the Mamati. It was so lovely being, at Kuchi the other day. When was that? Monday. My goodness. Seafaring folk need to be by the sea. Although I'm not ungrateful, for my lovely garden here. But it's just not quite the same, you understand, as the mock turtle would concur. So she sat on with closed eyes and half believed herself in Wonderland, though she knew she had but to open them again and all would change to dull reality. The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds. The rattling teacups would change to tinkling sheep bells, and the queen's shrill cries to the voice of the shepherd boy, and the sneeze of the baby, the shriek of the griffin, and all the other queer noises would change, she knew, to the confused clamour of the busy farmyard, while the lowing of the cattle in the distance would take the place of the mock turtle's heavy sobs. Lastly, she pictured to herself how the same little sister of hers would, in the after-time, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep, through all her riper years, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all their simple sorrows, and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. Blessed be from Lewis Carroll to you across time and space in the space-time continuum, from my sacred space garden here at Titania's Realm to you, from my birdie boys, Bo and Kermie, and the wild birds that came to visit while we were reading the story and gave their opinion of it. And they seem to have all gone now, but that was quite delightful. And yes, I'll be back tomorrow, no doubt. Tomorrow's Friday. Gosh, the week's gone past very quickly. But I plan to come back tomorrow and read to you, begin reading to you through the Looking Glass and what Alice found there. So have a beautiful afternoon, morning, evening, night, wherever you are here on planet Earth, and remember, as always, to thine own self be true. Be ready for the transformative process of being a caterpillar catalyzing into a butterfly. Once I dreamed I was a butterfly, but I was only a butterfly dreaming I was a man. Lao Tzu, I do believe. Anyway, it is what it is, people of Earth. Reality is relative and subjective and sometimes objective if you are the observer. Sometimes participatory if you are in it up to your neck and working hard and creating and making things work for you, like these earrings. Oh, I got quite fraught when I realised that I'd split the silver on the I don't think they're real silver, by the way, not sure what they are. They polished up nice, but anyway, split the little loop on the back of the little tiny opal. I had a bit of a meltdown over that, I can assure you. But I persevered, and now I'm wearing them, and I'm quite pleased. So I want to go to Carindale and look for Hanukkah candles. I couldn't find Hanukkah candles the last 5 or 6 years, but last year somehow my daughter got word to me via Jared that they're at Carindale. So I'll have a look. Every time I've gone, I've never been able to find them, so I don't know whether that was a mistake or misdirection or what, but anyway, I'll go to Carindale. I'll buy some more sesame snacks, something to cook up for dinner. My vegetables were delivered yesterday, so I don't really need vegetables. Yes, I'll try and enjoy the rest of my afternoon and relax. Achieved a lot today. Polished up that lovely hair on the moon pendant, and also polished up my Viking earrings that I started off wearing today. Yes, busy mama tea. This is not hanging how I want it. It's going to grind my gears. Right, slight bend there. It's weird because when you hold it up and by the fingers, it's perfectly fine. Right. Mother and child are separated by opal and marquisite. Let's get it in the sun so you can see it properly. Face the sun. Here's the sun over here by the gods. Well, I'm having fun playing with my earrings. What else have I got going on? I could have done the dusting, polishing of all the furniture, and I could have cleaned all my copper pots and brass today. That was actually going to be the plan this morning until I found the little bottom half of the Matryoshka doll. I was like, right, forget about dusting and polishing. I have other project to do today. But I really do need to do the dusting, people there. After 6 months, it really does need doing. Quentin Crisp. Okay, bye for now. Blessed be. Have a lovely day.